almost don't want that
I think
song.
we're having way too much fun with that song.
Can we play that song like the entire show? Play the entire show.
Yeah.
What's wrong with it? It's a great song.
It is a great song. No, I'd start bopping away. It wouldn't be fair to the people.
It would not. But good evening for those friends in Australia and Asia. Welcome to the other side of cyber.
The other side of cyber. And for our probably confused friends, although they're getting used to us now, in Clubhouse, where they can see just one person's profile there, but two voices coming out. So James and my voice are coming out on the other side of cyber club in Clubhouse, which is fantastic. So hang around, guys. We've got 30 minutes of our live podcast, and then we will bring you up on the stage in Clubhouse for you to ask any questions or have a chat. For everybody else, where are we live on? Where? YouTube?
So we're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you want to join us after 30 minutes, you're going to have to go to Clubhouse. If you don't have an invite for Clubhouse, ping me or JJ, and we'll send you an invite so you can be on the coolest platform, Clubhouse.
Exactly. And for me, make sure you ping me on LinkedIn. That is the way I will find you, and say, please send Clubhouse invite. And we very well may do that. So the other side of cyber, as a reminder to everyone, is all about the other side of cyber. Really logical, I know, but it's that human element. It is what's going on in the human part. So we talk about current events, things that are happening at the moment. Tonight's topic is awesome. And I'm fascinated to see what James was thinking with this one. When I saw it, I smiled and thought, I love it, because really the question is, does cybersecurity have a PR problem? I have my thoughts on this. James, why did you decide that this was the topic for us tonight?
So for our friends over in Australia, they may or may have not, depending on their global worldview, have understood that there's a shortage of oil in the southeast of the U.S.
Oh yeah, that problem. Yeah, we sort of heard. Of course, we heard about that. Yes,
and,
we do.
Because a company that is a victim of a crime run by a group that is trying to be Robin Hood, but really they're criminals. They're not a good group of people. The fact that they steal money from companies and then donate some of it to charity does not make one good.
No.
If I could, go to whoever wrote Robin Hood and just, go back in time and give them that would be nice.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I know. So the aftermath of this ransomware attack on the pipeline and kind of its implications across the board, and some of the comments that I've read on like LinkedIn, to me, were just like, does cybersecurity have a PR problem? One, yes, I think so. And number two, we have an internal PR problem.
Oh.
From our own cybersecurity people who write stuff that by all means is not only something that may be categorically false,
yeah,
but undermines the progress that an industry is trying to make in garnering attention and seriousness from business leaders and business enablers across enterprises and government.
So give me some examples. What have you seen that makes you think that?
So I refuse to dox people, so I'm not going to say names.
No, of course
not. So there was a chief information security officer for a fairly large security company who said Colonial wasn't attacked. They left their door unlocked, and they were robbed, but they were robbed on their own doing. And so, I'm like, well, even if you did, let's say you left your front door unlocked.
Yeah.
Right? You're still a victim of a crime.
Look, accidentally, even if you shut it, but you didn't lock it. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah. Geez, you bring up some good ideas. Okay, so Do we know actually what happened? Was it human error in this instance? Do we know or not?
So that's the other thing. So that's the other thing. We don't know what happened, and people are like, "Oh, we know how ransomware attacks happen. It's because either someone fell for phishing, they didn't patch a system, or they weren't doing security or IT correctly." We don't know what happened because if you've ever been part of a cybersecurity incident response, the first 48 to 72 hours, you're just trying to restore stuff. You don't even know. You don't know what's going on until you finish your forensics and audits. And sometimes that takes months. And this generation of instant gratification and these people who are in cybersecurity who are writing this stuff, it's incomprehensible. It really is. It's irresponsible.
Here's my question to you, though. And please, hear me out. One thing that I'm noticing, and statistics are there to prove it, there is enough information to support it. What we're seeing in the world of cybersecurity is you could have the best infrastructure, you could have the best team of people, you could even have some excellent security awareness training that's going on following best practice. The point we need to understand, folks, is there is absolutely no solution here. It is an ongoing issue, whether it be social engineering, whether it be nation states, state actors, cyber criminal gangs, whoever you want to call them, hackers. Well, not all hackers. Remember, I don't like calling them hackers because there are some great skilled hackers out there. But the criminal aspect of hacking, no matter what you do, no matter how brilliant you are, you can still have an incident that occurs for no fault of your own, whether that be one patch you missed, one click that occurs. Everything we do in this whole entire world of cybersecurity is to try and protect our systems, our infrastructure, our people, and our governments and everything else. Now, we cannot ever, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, expect anybody to think that this is something that, naughty you shouldn't have done it. You can have the best stuff locked in your house and everything protected, and they can go underground through a hole and, drill a hole in the floorboards, through the cement if they wanted to. If someone wants to get in, they'll get in. So I think with the PR problem, James, when I read that, that's the first thing I thought, why would James say this? Because we share the topics, folks, just to give you an idea. We share the topics to say, okay, what are we going to do this week? I'll think of what we're going to do next week. It's the kind of thing we do. And the reason is we have different brains. We have different thought patterns and different approaches. And this one I thought was very left field from James, but then I realized what's going on and why he might be saying it. So I had a little bit of think. James, am I on the right track there when we talk about PR, that rather than pointing fingers, we need to come together and say, okay, how can we help? What can we learn? What's next? And just try and keep moving forward, managing the ongoing issue.
Yeah, so we inherently need to kind of take this and comprehend it from two different scenarios. And I want to be very, I'm one who says what he means and means what he says most of the time. Right?
Yes, you are.
And I want to, when I look at how the outside media or talking heads cover cyber, I get a little cringy with some of the stuff they say. And then I get cringier when I start to read the people who have asked for comments on their story with some of the stuff they say. Yep. And because this show isn't only for cybersecurity practitioners, and because we're on Clubhouse and there's people who are listening to us who are not cybersecurity people, but maybe technology people or just small business people or anything like that, I want to say two things. One, cybersecurity is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It is very complex. Patching your Word, I'm sure everyone this week had to patch their Microsoft suite because guess what? It was Patch Tuesday on Tuesday. and Microsoft automatically sends updates to your computer to get you to patch all the vulnerabilities that exist within the Microsoft suite. So if you haven't done that, make sure to go do that. Now, once you patch your stuff, you're protecting it from known vulnerabilities.
Yep.
Now, in theory, that's a very easy patch to do because, your Microsoft and Excel and Outlook, they're not interconnected. They're kind of standalone applications. But in the business world, in complex IT environments and complex business environments, your network isn't relying on one or two or three different things. Your network is relying on a multitude of different things that are connected in ways that are not naturally meant to be connected, but that's how the business powers itself and does what it does.
Yep.
And so you've got systems that are talking to each other constantly. And some of that, when it needs to be patched, the patch, what it fixes, could inherently break something that's working in the business. And that leads to a situation where you've got a known vulnerability, but you can't do anything about it until you find a workaround. And finding a workaround isn't like TV, I love it because it's the same theory when people say, why can't a cop shoot someone in the leg? And I'm like, Hollywood has destroyed human perception of what is real and what isn't. Right?
When we look at the PR element, James, how do we switch this? What kind of messaging or language do you think we need to introduce to that? Because PR is, all about public relations, and how when we see the headlines of ransomware or cyber attack or, China, Russia, North Korea or South Korea, North Korea, whatever is going on, how do we flip the wording? How do we change that? And can we? Is it one of those, that's going to take forever? Or is it something we need to do by example? Like now I'm noticing a lot of when there is a breach that occurs with organizations, a lot of people within cyber won't point fingers. They're now saying, let's take some moments to, send our support to the guys and the girls who are now trying to work out what happened and where this occurred. Not these guys clearly were inexperienced, didn't do the right thing, obviously weren't patching, that kind of stuff. So we've changed our approach there.
What do you think? We've made progress. Let's not talk that our PR problem has been the same for 10 years. We've made progress, but I think because we've made progress, right? When I see professional information security people who represent sometimes leading organizations in cyber, to people who are trying to sell you something.
Yep.
And this is what they say. I, as James, refuse to do business with those people. I will never do business with those people. I will blacklist the entire company because of one potty mouth.
Yep.
Right? And part of that has to do with the fact that we have to kind of come together on this and understand. And for people who aren't in technology or security, this is really critical, folks. It's really important. There's aspects of security that are so beyond patching or phishing. There are elements in security that are, I don't want to say incomprehensible to the average person.
Well, James, they are. And that's the important thing. They actually are. That's why we have the other side of cyber. So you've got to let people know that there are some things that go on that we can't even describe or explain if you're in the trenches, stuff that I don't even know. You know stuff that goes on. I have no idea of the things that you need to deal with in your role and what you do. But explaining, if you can, the type of things, maybe we need to educate in what goes on rather than, I don't know. It's a really, it's a
I want to share, something. I don't often share a lot on my shows, but I will because I think it plays right into today's topic.
Okay.
When you hear of a cybersecurity incident that happens for a company, if you've never been in a room with people, you don't quite comprehend the amount of stress one can be under from a job. at that very moment.
Yep.
I've seen grown men sit across the table with their heads in their hands and tears rolling down their face.
Yep.
I've seen people who didn't sleep for days on end because of that.
Wow.
I've been in situations where people's mental health was severely impacted by something like this. And part of the problem we have in society today is we're not mindful of the stuff we write or say publicly on social media to
Because it's too
understand
easy.
the downstream impact of it. Because if
Yep.
you were to my face, you may not say the same thing, or you may say something within the same realm, but you would use much better vocabulary in the way you do it.
Yep.
And I think that's a really big problem from a PR standpoint when we attack ourselves. It's like it's almost like someone from the business, right? You know, best terms, right? I work for McDonald's.
Yep.
And I'm a senior vice president at McDonald's, and I come out and I go, I don't eat McDonald's.
Yep.
Right? Our fries aren't the best. I prefer Burger King fries. They're much better.
Yes. You can't say that. You wouldn't do it. You never would.
So why do cybersecurity people feel the urge to do that? And this is near and dear to my heart, and I think you can tell. But it's really, man, this is so it's so frustrating. And there's a group of us on Slack and LinkedIn, and we have these like group messages, and it's a bunch of cybersecurity people. And when we see people like that, we post it there, and we share what we see. And there's so many smart people. There's so many smart people.
Yeah.
And what I would look at this and urge people to do is think before you write, because you don't know the downstream effect.
But I think often firstly, yes, I agree, and you are correct. Now let's look at the other side of that. As we look at the other side of cyber, usually when individuals say things like that, act in certain ways, often it's a direct reflection of them. They haven't taken the time to think, and most people can see that. Unfortunately, the people who might be in the very close to the situation that's occurring, because they're in a heightened state emotionally, and whatever that is, whether that be stress, anger, they haven't slept for 3 days. Because, you know, when this kind of stuff happens, folks, you don't go home at the end of your shift. It's all hands on deck for as long as it takes. And again, you know, it's like if there was an emergency happening in a hospital, doctors do that. We don't know all the things that go on behind the scenes. But when we're talking about people writing things and just sending it, whatever they're doing, it's more about them. They haven't stopped to think, hold on, what kind of message will this actually give? It's like, I'm going to flip it around to the red flags in emails. If you don't stop and think before you click, that's your issue. If you don't stop and think before you share, that's an issue. And I know I do it, especially if it's an opinion piece. If it's something very factual based on what's going on, I still always read it to make sure I've, you know, got the words right. But if it's an opinion, or it could be seen as what I'm saying in relation to something else that could affect another human, I'll be very cautious in what I do. But that's taken years of practice, and people saying to me, JJ, probably shouldn't have posted that for these reasons. Oh, yep, good point. So is it about educating these people, James, do you think? Or is it these people are so far gone in their opinions in general terms that they have their own PR issue, not so much cybersecurity, but those particular individuals?
Look, we know that the internet is fringe, with some fringe ideology that goes out by fringe people that is sometimes propelled thanks to a social media network that should be demolished, aka Twitter.
Yeah.
I will continue to call for the destruction of Twitter for as long as I have a platform.
Okay.
I want Twitter out of business.
All views are our own and not of that of any organization or is that right? All opinions on this show are our own and do not befriend organization. Oh.
I think that Twitter has contributed nothing to humanity in its sheer existence. That is me. That is my opinion, and I stand by it.
Look,
Now,
you are entitled to it, my friend. Absolutely.
I have very good reasoning behind it as well.
You do.
Okay.
You do.
I will now go to the point where the problem that cybersecurity has, the challenge based on what you're saying, isn't the fringe. The fringe is always going to be there. Yep. Before the internet, they were putting out flyers and walking around neighborhoods and putting flyers in people's mailboxes.
And the windows of their cars. And
right. Yeah, you know, with all their fringe conspiracy theories, they were keeping print shops and businesses and destroying trees in the Amazon for ages because of that, right?
Yep.
Fringe is fringe. And we all know what we look, you know, if you're I don't want to say if you're educated, if you have common sense, then you know what fringe is. You know, like people who are anti-vaxxers who were saying like there's 5G chips in your dose of vaccine, and it's a microchip that you don't see, but it's very, very powerful, and it powers 5G. And you're like, you guys are idiots. Like,
but I believe in what they're saying, and is that what we're seeing here in the cyber world as well?
So in the cyber world, we have some fringe people. I don't expect industry people to be fringe people.
Yeah, or if they are, if that McDonald's manager actually thinks the fries are better at Burger King, keep his mouth shut.
Right. If you've got nothing, you know, mom says, right? The big saying, mom says, you know, if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all.
Yep.
If you don't have a way to contribute to an effective conversation, then don't be part of that conversation. But what we're seeing here is a little bit different than that, JJ. What we're seeing here is people with a CISO title writing things on a professional network that brings about I think, a very unique set of views.
Okay. So in that case, we're talking about re-education, or are we talking about some people who have been in the job for a long time who haven't necessarily moved with the times to understand what's going on, who do need
You're trying to be, you're being the nice, sweet person that you are, JJ. And, you know, I love how you do that always. And you're like, I want to think the best of people.
Well, I do. Good morning, James McQuiggan.
And you remind me of my lovely, beautiful wife who is the same way. Good morning to the, I'm going to call him today the better James.
The better James. Wow.
The better James. Or good evening for JJ.
That's right.
I love James McQuiggan, FYI. One of my favorite people on this planet.
He's not a bad egg, as they say.
James, if there's two things I love about James, is one, he's uber smart. Like, not super smart. He's super uber smart.
Super poober.
Number two, he lets you know what he thinks when he needs to do it, and he does it in a way that's very, very inclusive, where he's not laying judgment. So I think he's one of the better communicators in our industry.
Very good point. And for the lovely Andrew, who is patiently listening to us in Clubhouse at the moment, we appreciate you as well, Andrew. No one can see you live because you're over there on my iPad, but I'm looking at you and saying, hi, hang about. We'll be there soon to have a chat.
Yep, 6 more minutes.
If you'd like to join us, you jump over there too. Happy to see you in both places.
So I want to say,
I'll stop being nice, okay?
So you were being very nice.
Okay.
But when you're a CISO or a CIO, or a director of information security, or head of information security, or whatever other title that's equivalent to a CISO title within your organization, and you write this kind of stuff, I have an inherent problem with your leadership. And I have an inherent problem with the fact that you're missing out on the boat of cybersecurity professionals who are working night and day to do this. And Gerd brings up a great comment here. Let's bring it out. Good morning,
yes.
everyone. Now, what about the PR problem, the public perception problem? Are PR folks translators? And how good a job are they doing with cyber? JJ, want to tackle this first?
Well, that's a big one, Gerd. A couple of things here. It's like how do I explain? Oh, my cat's meowing in the background, if you're wondering what that's
like. You're making mom's life hard. She has to think.
I know. Do you know what time it is? No, not at all. Okay, let's think about HR or recruiters. Let's think about recruiters first and their challenge when it comes to hiring for cybersecurity. The biggest issue is there's a mismatch between what the company thinks they need versus the real people that exist versus the templates and the natural approach that recruiters use. And there's a big movement happening now, of which James is a big part of, to actually bridge that gap and say, hold on a minute, let's come back, let's educate the recruiters to say this is how we really should be approaching it, because what you're putting out there is, quite frankly, sometimes hilarious, and you will never find those people. And I think the same can be said for PR. It is not so much PR aren't cyber. They rely on subject matter experts. Now, when we look in the world of cyber, traditionally and holistically, people in the position of CISO or CISO, whichever country you're living in, CIOs, or at that level of being a subject matter expert, aren't the best at articulating and communicating what is going on. James Azar is a rarity. So this is what we need to be really careful of, is we need to absolutely educate and explain and give a little bit more encouragement to those who are speaking, and also to PR, to those or people who are traditionally do PR, to say, when you're looking for someone to talk on cybersecurity, here's what you need to look for, because it's a whole re-education process. PR traditionally will be given a directive by an organization to say, here's what we want, here's where we want to get to. But when you're talking about the public perception problem, I think it's a multi-tiered approach. The media also have a lot to answer for, in my humble opinion, with how they represent cyber and what's going on out there. PR do as well. We do as consumers, and we need to educate the people who are willing to be educated from the spokesperson point of view. I hope that makes sense. I'm jumping off now. Boom.
It does. Boom. That's brilliant. That's one great way to answer this. You kind of brought in the whole cycle. I kind of want to go directly at Gerd's question.
Okay.
Are PR folks translators? So PR folks are PR folks, and let's do a difference between what PR. When I mean a PR problem, I'm going to look at it from a public perception challenge. Okay. Because most PR companies, I get probably 20, 30 emails a day from PR folks that are pitching me some cybersecurity company that's groundbreaking and revolutionary, and they're the person's the smartest person on planet Earth, and I should definitely have the person on my show. And I'm like, okay, thank you. That's very kind of you, and I appreciate it. Have a great day. What I talk about is predominantly around the media and the news cycle, and how the news covers cyber, and then how the industry reacts to those news articles. So if you read any of the stories around the Colonial Pipeline ransomware in major publications like Wall Street Journal, The Post, The Retraction Times, the New York Post, or any other publication, right? MSNBC, Fox, whatever CNN, pick one. They write the story with the PR, right? That's how these stories are written. If you've never spoken to a journalist and understood how they write a story, it's actually pretty mind-boggling of how little work they have to do. So they literally take the PR press release that comes through Reuters, and they will use several paragraphs from there. And then they'll reach out to industry to get comments and opinions on the story and what it really means, to give context.
So who are they reaching out to? Is that the issue?
Vendors. Yeah, they're reaching out to vendors. So they're reaching out to companies that have a bone to pick, meaning they want to, AKA, I want to sell you my latest, greatest thing. And I get why you reach out to those people because, typically, none of us consider McDonald's to be the hamburger experts anymore, right? No one says, I want to do a hamburger. I'm going to call McDonald's and be like, hey, how do you guys do a hamburger? Because the McDonald's hamburger has more silicone than meat in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what your body's processing. That's why the taste is the same. No matter where you go in this country, a McDonald's burger is the same McDonald's burgers because, of that. But when we want a good burger, we don't think of McDonald's. We think of a really good burger spot that puts a juicy piece of meat between two amazing buns with some secret sauce and some toppings. Wow, I made myself want a burger this morning.
I know. And it's like 9 o'clock at night and I want a burger. Serious?
So I get why if you're in the burger business and you're doing an article about burgers, you're probably going to reach out to McDonald's and Burger King because they're the most known burger joints.
But I think that it also comes down to the type of media, and I'm aware of time, so we will be shortly finishing up our live podcast recording, and we'll be moving over to the Clubhouse platform to continue this conversation. And Gerd, I noticed you said thank you for my response there. You are most welcome, my friend. When we look at media, because I know, speaking personally, I do a lot of media commentary, as James McQuiggan does as well, and we are very particular to be positioning ourselves as thought leaders. Whilst we are representing an organization, we're very careful and cautious, and our whole intent is to make sure we're speaking on behalf of cybersecurity. We're not looking at it from a vendor position, and it is so abundantly clear to us in our work and in what we do that it's not about the product. And it's a bit of a rarity because most of the time you are absolutely right, James, that PR tends to come from the vendor's approach. That commentary comes from the vendor approach. And I think I just take it for granted that I don't with what I do. I'm very much looking at what is happening, what has happened, what global statistics are there to support it. And yes, what is an opinion? Michael, burger cybersecurity analogies. You're speaking my language. You are so true, Michael. It's not fair. I just want a burger. Anyhow, and I think that's exactly right. The majority of commentary that is given to these stories, media, and that kind of thing are very vendor-driven. And if we can move away from it, I think we're a long way from moving.
I'm not saying we need to move away from it because you're not going to change journalism.
But that needs to be conscious.
With the cybersecurity people that are commenting on this, and typically they send an email, right? And they ask you for an answer to a question or two, and you reply, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's positive things with that and there's negative things with that. But I think as cybersecurity professionals with responsible vendors, right? And I will say this, with responsible vendors, answer those differently than the irresponsible ones who generate a quote that's mindful. Like I do the practitioner brief every day, right? Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. And sometimes in the middle of the brief, people who pay attention to detail will call me out on it. They'll go, you didn't finish the article. And I'm like, well, the next two paragraphs are all vendor comments that are just BS, right? They talk about how we should invest more money into cyber and how we should, do more of this or do more of that. Yes, we all get it. That's still, we put home alarms, we have Ring doorbells, and there's still home robberies, right?
Yep.
We have cameras everywhere. There's still robberies. You're not going to stop crime. And cyber crime is a new version of crime. And cybercrime has no borders, meaning I'm no longer dealing with my geographical area of threats. I'm now dealing with a limitless, borderless geographical area that's threatening my IT. And Ken here has a comment. Cyber companies, generally speaking, do not discuss and focus on cyber principles. They don't. That's a point well given. Point well stated, my good friend Ken. It's to me that's the mind-boggling aspect of all of this, and that's why I think cyber has a PR problem.
Yep.
Is because also a lot of times the folks that are managing the PR for the cybersecurity company are so focused on, creating a sort of sensationalism. And that's part of why the world is what it is today, is because we've allowed that kind of behavior to really position itself.
That's so true. And on that note,
we're going to move to Clubhouse.
Well, we could, or we could try something totally different.
I'm all for trying stuff.
So firstly, we're going to say thank you to our podcast listeners. We appreciate you. Everybody who is listening, including yourself, Andrew, on Clubhouse, stay right there. We encourage you to share our podcast far and wide. We love what we do. We want to hear from you of any ideas you might like us to talk about. And please subscribe and share it. And if I missed anything, smash like, subscribe. 5-star ratings. Is that the terminology I need to be adding in? Give us a 5-star rating, because that's really important.
Yeah, and like our podcast.
And like our podcast. So actually we will be moving, because we've got Mr. McQuiggan who's just moved over to Clubhouse. Good. Do you have a Clubhouse link? Are you in over there? What about Ken? So we've officially finished recording, so it's cool for that. Let me see. So we could try something different. And if our folks that are on Clubhouse would like to come up and have a chat, we could even see if this works for live things. What do you think?
I think we can move to Clubhouse because we can have a more
intimate conversation. All right, we're moving over to Clubhouse. So I'll stay here, James, and I look forward to seeing you over there. For the other folks, for Michael, for Gerd, Ken, please let us know if you want an invite. We can send you an invite and you can come on over and play. So we'll see you over in Clubhouse, Mr. Azar.
See ya.